He thought he was burying a stranger at his estranged uncle's funeral. But what the widowed father discovered inside the forgotten mansion he inherited wasn't just $270 million hidden beneath the floors. It was a secret that would change everything he thought he knew about family, loss, and the second chance he never saw coming. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The rain fell hard on the day Michael Hart buried a man he barely knew. It wasn't the soft, cinematic kind of rain that made everything look meaningful. It was cold, angry, and relentless, the kind that soaked through cheap suits and made cemetery grass into mud. Michael stood at the edge of the gathering, one hand gripping his daughter Emma's small shoulder, the other shoved deep in his jacket pocket. He didn't belong here. He knew it. The other mourners knew it too. They were distant cousins, business associates, people who spoke in hushed tones about investments and estate values. They looked at Michael like he was an intruder, which, to be fair, he supposed he was. His uncle, Richard Montgomery Hart, had been a ghost in Michael's life, a name mentioned only in passing by Michael's late mother, always with a strange mixture of sadness and disapproval. Michael had met him exactly twice. Once at a family wedding when Michael was 7, and once at his mother's funeral 12 years ago, where Richard had stood in the back, left before the reception, and never said a word. Now here Michael was, 38 years old, exhausted in the way only single fathers understand, attending the funeral of a man who felt more like a rumor than family. Emma tugged at his sleeve. Her voice was small beneath the drumming rain. "Daddy, why are we here?" Michael looked down at his 8-year-old daughter. Her brown hair was plastered to her forehead. Her blue coat, 2 sizes too big because he'd bought it on clearance hoping she'd grow into it, hung heavy with water. "Because family shows up," he said quietly, "even when it's complicated." She seemed to accept that. Emma had learned early that life didn't always make sense. She'd lost her mother 2 years ago to cancer, watched her father work double shifts just to keep the lights on, and never once complained. She was tougher than most adults Michael knew. The service was brief. A priest who clearly hadn't known Richard read generic platitudes from a card. No one cried, no one shared memories. It felt less like a funeral and more like the closing of a transaction. Afterward, as people dispersed toward their cars, a man in a grey suit approached Michael. He was older, maybe 60, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Hart." "Michael Hart." Michael nodded. "I'm Arnold DeVries, your uncle's attorney. I've been trying to reach you for 3 weeks." Michael frowned. "I've been working, site supervisor on a construction crew. Sometimes I don't check messages for days." DeVries handed him a business card that was already getting soggy. "We need to talk. It's about your uncle's estate." Michael glanced at the card, then at Emma, who was trying to catch raindrops on her tongue. "Look, if this is about funeral costs, I can't help. I'm barely keeping my own head above water." "It's not about costs," DeVries said. "It's about your inheritance." The word landed like a stone. "Inheritance?" Michael repeated. DeVries nodded. "Your uncle left you something significant. We need to discuss it privately. My office, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. He handed Michael another card with the address. Michael stared at it, confusion and suspicion tangled together. "Why me?" he asked. "Why not any of them?" He gestured toward the other mourners, now mostly gone. DeVries smiled faintly. "That's exactly what your uncle knew you'd ask. He said you were the only one who would. And that's precisely why it's you." Before Michael could respond, DeVries walked away, leaving him standing in the rain with more questions than answers. That night, Michael sat at the kitchen table of their small apartment while Emma slept in the next room. The place was cramped, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors argue. The heater rattled like it was dying. But it was theirs, or at least it was for another month until rent came due again. Michael spread the contents of his wallet across the table. $83. His next paycheck was 5 days away. The electric bill sat unopened because he already knew what it said. He picked up DeVries's business card and turned it over in his calloused hands. Inheritance. The word felt foreign, almost laughable. People like Michael didn't inherit things. They worked for them, bled for them, and sometimes still came up short. He thought about his uncle, tried to picture the man's face from 12 years ago. All he could remember was someone tall, quiet, and sad. Someone who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Why would a man like that leave Michael anything? He almost didn't go to the appointment. Almost called DeVries and said thanks, but no thanks, assuming it was some kind of mistake or cruel joke. But something stopped him. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was the memory of his wife, Sarah, 2 weeks before she died, holding his hand and whispering, "Something good is going to come, Michael. I can feel it. You just have to be ready to see it." So the next morning, he dropped Emma at school, took a personal day from work he couldn't afford to lose, and drove his beat-up truck across town to DeVries's office. The law office was small but tidy, tucked between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service. DeVries met him in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and leather. He slid a folder across the table. "Mr. Hart, your uncle's will is straightforward. He left his entire estate to you." Michael blinked. Estate. DeVries opened the folder. One property, 12 acres, a mansion built in 1976. It's located about 40 miles outside the city, near a town called Millbrook Hollow. Michael shook his head. "I've never even heard of Millbrook Hollow." DeVries nodded. "Not many have. It's small. Population less than 800. The house has been vacant for 32 years. Michael leaned back. "Why?" DeVries hesitated. "Your uncle lived there briefly after it was built. Then he left. No one's lived there since, but the property taxes have been paid, utilities maintained. It's all been kept up through a trust. And now it's mine." "Yes." DeVries slid a set of keys across the table. 2 heavy brass keys on a simple ring. "But there's a condition." Michael's stomach tightened. "Of course there is. You have to visit the property within 30 days of his death. If you don't, the estate reverts to the state." Michael stared at the keys. "And if I do visit, then it's yours, free and clear. No debts, no liens. The house, the land, everything." He paused. "Your uncle also left you this." DeVries handed him an envelope, cream-colored, expensive-looking, with Michael's name written in elegant script across the front. Michael turned it over. It was sealed with red wax. "Open it when you're ready," DeVries said, "preferably at the property." Michael left the office 20 minutes later with keys, an envelope, a deed, and a growing sense that he'd just stepped into something far bigger than a simple inheritance. The drive to Millbrook Hollow took an hour. Michael picked up Emma from school first, told her they were going on an adventure. Her eyes lit up in a way that made his chest ache. Adventures had been rare since Sarah died. The landscape changed as they drove. The city gave way to suburbs, then to farmland, then to dense forest. The road narrowed, pavement turned to gravel. The GPS on Michael's phone lost signal twice. "This is creepy," Emma said from the passenger seat, though she didn't sound scared. She sounded intrigued. Michael had to agree. The trees grew taller, thicker, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the afternoon sun. The air felt different here, older. When they finally turned onto the property, Michael's breath caught. A wrought iron gate stood open, rusted but still imposing. Beyond it, a long driveway stretched through overgrown grounds, and at the end of that driveway, rising from the wilderness like something out of a forgotten dream, was the mansion. It was massive. 3 stories of dark stone and tall windows with turrets on either end and a grand entrance framed by columns wrapped in ivy. The style was somewhere between Gothic and Victorian, beautiful in a haunting way. "Daddy," Emma whispered. "It looks like a castle." Michael parked the truck and they stepped out. The silence was immediate and heavy. No traffic sounds, no voices, just wind through trees and the distant call of a bird. The mansion loomed before them, windows dark, vines crawling up the walls like veins. It should have felt abandoned, but instead it felt patient, like it had been waiting. Michael gripped the keys in his hand. Emma stayed close to his side. They approached the front entrance. The double doors were solid wood, carved with intricate designs now worn by time. Michael tried the first key. It slid in smoothly, too smoothly for a lock that hadn't been used in 3 decades. The mechanism turned with a heavy click. He pushed. The door opened without a sound, as if the hinges had been oiled yesterday. The entrance hall was vast. A chandelier hung from the ceiling, draped in dust, but still magnificent. A grand staircase curved upward to the 2nd floor. The floor was marble, cracked in places but still intact. Furniture sat beneath white sheets like sleeping ghosts. Michael flipped a light switch, not expecting anything. The chandelier flickered, then blazed to life. Emma gasped. "How is there power?" Michael whispered. "The lawyer said utilities were maintained," Michael murmured, "but this is something else." They moved deeper inside. Every room they entered was the same, frozen in time. A dining room with a table set for 12. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves still filled with volumes. A parlor with a grand piano, sheet music open on the stand. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was vandalized. It was as if someone had simply walked away mid-life and never returned. Emma found a hallway on the 2nd floor. At the end was a door painted pale yellow. She pushed it open. "Daddy, look!" Michael followed her inside and stopped. It was a child's bedroom, a girl's room. The walls were soft pink. Toys sat on shelves. A dollhouse stood in the corner, perfectly preserved. A small bed with a handmade quilt. Drawings pinned to a corkboard. Stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, and Me. Michael's throat went tight. Emma walked to the bed and picked up a stuffed rabbit, worn but clean. "Someone loved this," she said softly. "Yeah," Michael whispered. "Someone did." They explored for another hour. The kitchen still had dishes in the cabinets. The bathrooms had towels on the racks. Upstairs, in what was clearly the master bedroom, Michael found a photograph on the dresser. A family. A man who looked like a younger version of Uncle Richard. A beautiful woman with kind eyes, and a little girl with pigtails, maybe 5 or 6 years old. They were smiling, genuinely happy, standing in front of this very house. Michael turned the frame over. On the back, written in faded ink, was a date, June 1978, 2 years after the house was built. "What happened to you?" Michael whispered. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the tall windows, Michael and Emma found themselves back in the entrance hall. "This place is amazing," Emma said, "but it's sad too." Michael nodded. "Yeah, kiddo, it is." "Can we stay here?" Emma asked. Michael looked around. The house was huge, far too big for 2 people, but it was also intact, functional, and more importantly, it was theirs. He thought about their cramped apartment, the overdue bills, the uncertain future. "Maybe," he said, "maybe we can." They decided to stay the night. Michael found linens in a closet, surprisingly fresh, as if someone had washed them recently. They made up beds in 2 of the smaller guest rooms. Michael heated up canned soup on the kitchen stove, which worked perfectly. They ate by candlelight because the overhead lights felt too bright, too exposing. After Emma fell asleep, Michael sat alone in the library. He pulled out the envelope De Vries had given him. The wax seal felt heavy under his thumb. He broke it open and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've found the house. I'm sorry it had to be you. I'm sorry for many things, but most of all, I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. You don't know me, and that's my fault. I disappeared from the family because I couldn't bear to be around happiness when mine had been taken. This house was supposed to be my dream. I built it for my wife, Catherine, and our daughter, Lily. We lived here for 2 beautiful years. Then one morning, a drunk driver ran a red light. They died instantly. I survived. I've never forgiven myself for that. I left this place the day after the funeral and never came back. I couldn't. Every room held their voices, their laughter, their absence. But I couldn't destroy it either, so I locked it up. I've spent 30 years watching from a distance, waiting, hoping to find someone who understood loss but hadn't let it destroy them. I followed your life, Michael. I know you lost Sarah. I know you're raising Emma alone. I know you work yourself to exhaustion trying to give her a future. You're stronger than I ever was. This house is yours now. But it's more than just a house. There are things here I've protected, things I couldn't use, things that might give you and Emma the life you deserve. Search carefully. Trust your instincts. And when you find what I've left, use it wisely. You were always the best of us, even when the family didn't see it. Your Uncle Richard. Michael read the letter 3 times. His hands shook. Search carefully. Trust your instincts. What did that mean? He stood and looked around the library, shelves lined with books, paintings on the walls, furniture arranged with care. What was he supposed to find? He began to search methodically, pulled books from shelves, checked behind paintings, tapped walls, listening for hollow sounds. Nothing. Hours passed. Exhaustion crept in. He was about to give up when he noticed something strange. One section of the bookshelf, about 4 feet wide, had books that looked different, older. The spines were faded uniformly, as if they'd been placed at the same time and never moved. Michael pulled one out. The pages were blank. He pulled another, also blank. His pulse quickened. He pulled all 12 books from that section. Behind them, carved into the wood, was a small symbol, a keyhole. Michael's breath caught. He ran to get the keys De Vries had given him. There were 2. He'd used one for the front door. He tried the second key in the tiny lock. It fit. He turned it. Something inside the wall clicked, then a soft mechanical hum. The entire bookshelf section swung inward, revealing darkness beyond. Michael grabbed a flashlight from his truck and returned. He shined the light into the opening. Stone steps led downward. His heart hammered. He thought about waking Emma, then decided against it. If this was dangerous, he didn't want her near it. Michael descended. The steps were narrow, carved from the same stone as the house's foundation. The air grew cooler. At the bottom, he found himself in a corridor. The flashlight beam swept across smooth walls, a concrete floor, and ahead, a door. Not a wooden door, a vault door. Steel, massive, with a circular locking mechanism that looked like something from a bank. Michael approached slowly. On the wall beside the door was a small brass plate. Engraved on it were 3 words, "For the Guardian." His uncle's letter echoed in his mind. There are things here I've protected. Michael examined the vault door. The locking mechanism had a combination dial. 12 numbers, 0 through 11. He had no idea what the combination could be. He tried the obvious things. His birthday. Emma's birthday. His uncle's birthday, if he even knew it. Nothing worked. He sat on the cold floor, thinking. Then he remembered the photograph. The one in the master bedroom. June 1978. He tried the date. 061978. The dial resisted, then something inside shifted. He continued. Added the day of his uncle's death from the funeral program. 0312. Another click. Then he tried something else. Emma's age. 08. The vault door released with a heavy thunk that echoed through the corridor. Michael stood, gripped the handle, and pulled. The door swung open with surprising ease, revealing another room beyond. He stepped inside and swept the flashlight across the space. His legs nearly gave out. The room was perhaps 30 feet square. The walls were lined with climate-controlled glass cases. Inside those cases were things Michael had only seen in museums: paintings in gilded frames, sculptures on pedestals, antique furniture polished to perfection, rare books in protective sleeves, vintage wine bottles in wooden racks. But that wasn't what made Michael's breath stop. In the center of the room stood a large table. On that table were documents, stacks of them, and boxes. Michael approached slowly, almost afraid to touch anything. He picked up the first folder. Inside were stock certificates, bearer bonds. His hands shook as he flipped through them. Companies he recognized, some dating back 40 years. The second folder contained appraisals, professional assessments of the art, the furniture, the wine collection, each item listed with an estimated value. Michael's vision blurred as he read the numbers. $3 million for a single painting, $1.2 million for a sculpture, $400,000 for a wine collection. The third folder was a handwritten ledger, his uncle's writing, neat and precise. Inventory, it said at the top. Then line after line of items, dates acquired, amounts paid, current estimated values. At the bottom of the final page, a total. Michael read it once, then again, then a third time, certain he was misreading. Total estate value as of December 31st, 2024, $270 million. The flashlight slipped from Michael's hand and clattered to the floor. He sank into a chair, head spinning. $270 million. He looked around the vault again. This wasn't possible. People like him didn't stumble into this kind of wealth. This had to be a mistake, a joke, a dream. But the documents were real. The items were real. The vault was real. Michael didn't know how long he sat there. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. Finally, he picked up one more piece of paper, another letter from his uncle. Michael, if you found this, then you've proven you're resourceful and determined. Good. You'll need both. This collection represents my life's work. I was a silent investor. I helped build companies, supported artists, funded ventures. I made a fortune, but I was never interested in spending it. After I lost Catherine and Lily, money felt meaningless. But I couldn't let it disappear either, so I preserved it. I've watched you, Michael. I know you're honest. I know you work hard. I know you love your daughter with everything you have. This wealth is yours now, but it comes with responsibility. Use it wisely. Protect it carefully. And most importantly, let it heal you, not define you. There are people who will come looking when they hear about this. Family members who ignored you will suddenly care. Strangers will appear with claims and schemes. Trust no one easily. The estate manager, Patricia Delacroix, has been maintaining this property for 30 years. She's the only one who knows what's here. You can trust her. She'll find you soon. This is your second chance, Michael. Take it. Build the life Sarah would have wanted for you and Emma. Your uncle, Richard. Michael folded the letter and stood on shaking legs. He looked around the vault one more time, then made his way back up the stone steps, through the library and into the entrance hall. Dawn was breaking outside, pale light streaming through the tall windows. Michael walked to the front door and stepped onto the porch. The ground stretched out before him, wild and overgrown but full of potential. In the distance, through the trees, he could see the first hint of sunrise. Behind him, inside this impossible house, lay a fortune beyond comprehension. Upstairs, his daughter slept peacefully, unaware that their lives had just changed forever. And somewhere in the shadows of the property, watching from a distance, someone else stood witness. A woman with silver hair and knowing eyes. Patricia Delacroix had been waiting 30 years for the guardian to arrive. Now he was here. And the real test was about to begin. Michael Hart didn't know it yet, but accepting this inheritance would mean more than money. It would mean facing threats he couldn't imagine, making choices that would define him, and learning that the greatest wealth his uncle had left him wasn't in the vault. It was in the chance to become the man he was always meant to be. Michael didn't sleep the rest of that night. He sat on the front porch steps, watching the sky shift from black to deep blue to pale gold. His mind kept circling back to the vault, to the numbers in that ledger, to the impossible reality of what lay beneath this house. $270 million. The words felt absurd even thinking them. He'd spent the last 2 years counting pennies, stretching meals, choosing between electricity and groceries. And now, somehow, he was sitting on a fortune that could change not just his life, but generations of lives. When the sun finally crested the tree line, Emma appeared in the doorway behind him. She was wearing the same clothes from yesterday, her hair a mess, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "Daddy," she said, rubbing sleep from her face, "this place is huge. Can we explore more today?" Michael turned and managed a smile. "Yeah, kiddo, we can explore." They spent the morning wandering through rooms Michael hadn't seen the night before. The mansion seemed to expand the more they walked. There was a conservatory with glass walls, now overgrown with wild plants that had broken through cracks. A ballroom with a floor so polished it reflected the dusty chandelier above. A music room with instruments still in their cases. A solarium filled with dead plants and pottery. Each space told a story of a life interrupted, of plans made and never fulfilled, of a family that had filled these halls with laughter until tragedy stole it all away. Emma ran ahead, her footsteps echoing through empty corridors. She opened doors with the fearless curiosity only children possess. "Look, Daddy," she called from somewhere down a hallway. "There's another staircase." Michael followed her voice and found her standing before a narrow spiral staircase he hadn't noticed before. It led upward, disappearing into darkness. "Where does it go?" Emma asked. "Only one way to find out," Michael said. They climbed. The stairs wound up and up, creaking beneath their weight. At the top, they found themselves in what must have been Richard's private study. Unlike the rest of the house, this room felt personal, lived in. The walls were lined with bookshelves, but these weren't decorative. These were working shelves, stuffed with journals, ledgers, folders, loose papers. A massive desk sat in the center, its surface covered in documents. Behind the desk, tall windows overlooked the entire property. Michael could see the overgrown gardens, the wild forest beyond, the long driveway stretching toward the main road. This was a room designed for thinking, for planning, for watching. Emma gravitated toward a globe in the corner. Michael approached the desk. The documents on top were financial reports, investment summaries, legal briefs, all dated within the last 5 years. His uncle had been working here recently. Michael opened the desk drawers one by one. The first contained pens, paper clips, rubber bands, normal office supplies. The second held personal items, a pocket watch, reading glasses, a photograph of Catherine and Lily, the same one from the bedroom. The third drawer was locked. Michael tried it twice, then noticed a small key taped to the underside of the desk. He peeled it off and unlocked the drawer. Inside were 3 leather-bound journals. He lifted the first one out. The cover was worn smooth. He opened to the first page. March 3rd, 1976. We broke ground today. Catherine cried when the first shovel hit earth. She said she could already see Lily running through these halls. I promised her this house would hold 100 years of happiness. I meant it. Michael's throat tightened. He flipped through the pages. His uncle's handwriting chronicled the building of the mansion, the choices made, the dreams woven into every stone. Then the entries changed. June 17th, 1978. I've never known joy like this. Lily learned to ride her bicycle on the front drive today. Catherine and I watched from the porch. She said this is what heaven must feel like. She was right. Michael flipped ahead. The handwriting became shakier. August 23rd, 1978. They're gone. The words were written so hard the pen had torn through the paper. The rest of the page was blank. The next 100 pages were blank. Then, years later, the writing resumed. April 9th, 1997. I drove past the house today. Couldn't bring myself to go inside. I've been paying Patricia to maintain it. She thinks I'm foolish. Maybe I am. But I can't let it fall apart. It's all I have left of them. Michael read entry after entry. Years of grief. Years of watching from a distance. Then he found the entries about himself. November 4th, 2009. My nephew Michael married. Today. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway. Stood in the back. He looked happy. She looked kind. Maybe some of us get it right. February 12th, 2022. Sarah died. I read the obituary. Cancer. She was only 35. Michael is alone now with their daughter. I remember what that feels like. The weight, the silence. I wish I could help, but I disappeared too long ago. They wouldn't want me now. June 1st, 2024. I'm dying. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I've spent 30 years hiding from life, but I can't hide from this. I need to decide what happens to everything I've built. I've been watching Michael. He's struggling, but he hasn't broken. He works 2 jobs. He shows up for his daughter. He's everything I should have been. Maybe he's the one. Maybe he can do what I couldn't. Tears blurred Michael's vision. His uncle had been watching, caring, hoping. All these years Michael thought he was alone, but Richard had been there, silent and distant, but present. "Daddy?" Emma's voice cut through his thoughts. "Are you okay?" Michael wiped his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay." "What's all that?" She pointed to the journals. Michael closed the one he'd been reading. "Stories," he said, "about the people who lived here." Emma walked over and put her small hand on his arm. "Were they sad?" "Some of them," Michael admitted, "but not all." She seemed satisfied with that answer. She wandered back to the globe, spinning it slowly. Michael opened the second journal. This one was different. It wasn't personal. It was business. Lists of investments, companies funded, returns calculated. His uncle had been brilliant. Every investment carefully researched, every risk calculated. He'd turned a modest inheritance into a massive fortune through patience and precision. The third journal was the most recent, dated from just 6 months ago. October 8th, 2024. I've made my decision. Michael gets everything. The family will hate it. They'll call it unfair. They'll say he doesn't deserve it. But deserve has nothing to do with it. He needs it. And more importantly, he'll use it right. I've arranged for Patricia to stay on as estate manager. She's the only one who knows about the collection. She'll guide him if he's smart enough to listen. There's more in the vault than I've shown in the ledger. A second chamber, deeper. I've left the combination in the library. He'll have to search for it. If he's worthy, he'll find it. Michael's pulse quickened. A second chamber. He thought the vault he'd found last night was everything. But there was more. He looked around the study. Emma was now examining a telescope near the window. Michael stood and approached the bookshelves. If his uncle hid things, he hid them in plain sight. Patterns, symbols, clues. He scanned the titles. Most were financial books, biographies of industrialists, histories of banking. But one shelf was different. Children's books, fairy tales, adventure stories. He pulled one out. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Inside, pressed between pages, was a slip of paper. On it, written in his uncle's hand, was a single word. Library. Michael's heart raced. He grabbed Emma's hand. "Come on," he said. "I need to check something." They descended the spiral staircase and made their way back to the main library. The bookshelf that hid the vault entrance was still open from last night. Michael stepped through and examined the space more carefully. The stone steps led down to the corridor, the vault door he'd opened. But now, in daylight filtering down from above, he noticed something he'd missed. The corridor didn't end at the vault. It continued past it. He'd been so focused on the vault door that he hadn't looked beyond. Michael walked past the open vault, deeper into the corridor. Emma followed, her hand gripping his. The passage narrowed. The air grew colder. They walked for maybe 50 feet before the corridor opened into a small antechamber. On the far wall was another door, smaller than the vault, more ornate. Carved into the stone above it was a date. June 17th, 1978, the day Lily learned to ride her bicycle. The happiest day of Richard's life. Michael approached the door. There was no combination lock this time, just a simple keyhole. He tried the keys DeVries had given him. Neither fit. He stepped back, thinking. The combination is in the library, his uncle's journal had said. But he'd just come from the library. Unless. Michael turned and ran back down the corridor, up the steps, into the library. Emma hurried after him. "What are we looking for?" she asked. "I don't know yet," Michael admitted. He scanned the shelves. Thousands of books, tens of thousands. How was he supposed to find one clue in all this? Then he remembered. His uncle was precise, methodical. Everything meant something. Michael looked at the shelf where he'd found the hidden keyhole, the blank books, 12 of them. He pulled them out again and examined them more carefully. The spines had numbers embossed in gold, very faint, almost invisible, 1 through 12. He arranged them in order on the floor. Then he opened the first book. The pages weren't completely blank. On page 17, a single word was written in pencil. When? He opened the second book, page 32. You. Third book, page 8. Find. He went through all 12 books, writing down each word and its page number. When you find what matters most, look where joy lived brightest. 17, 32, 8, 41, 9, 12, 53, 27, 6, 19, 3, 48. Michael stared at the numbers. They had to mean something. Coordinates? A combination? Wait. He looked at the bookshelf. The main library bookshelf. Sections were numbered. Small brass plates marked each section, 1 through 60. He went to section 17, scanned the shelves. 32 books across. He pulled the 32nd book. Behind it, carved into the wood, was a small recess. Inside the recess was a key, ornate, old, beautiful. Michael's hands shook as he lifted it out. "This is it," he whispered. They returned to the underground corridor. Michael fitted the key into the ornate door's lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Beyond it was another room, but this one was different. This wasn't a vault. It was a shrine. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them, Catherine and Lily, at the beach, in the garden, opening Christmas presents, blowing out birthday candles, laughing, living, loving. In the center of the room stood a glass case. Inside was Lily's stuffed rabbit, the one Emma had found in the bedroom. Beside it, Catherine's wedding ring, her favorite book, a pressed flower, and beneath the case, a wooden chest. Michael knelt and opened it. Inside were stacks of documents, bearer bonds, physical certificates worth millions, gold bars, small but heavy, their weight substantial in Michael's hands, rare coins in protective cases, and at the bottom a folder marked Final Instructions. Michael opened it. Inside was a letter and a legal document. The document was a trust, established in 1979, updated regularly over 45 years. The trust held everything: the house, the collection, the investments, the bonds, the gold, all of it managed by Patricia Delacroix as trustee, waiting for the day Richard found someone worthy to inherit. The letter was addressed to Michael. "My dear nephew, if you're reading this, you've found the heart of what I've built. This room holds what I treasured most, not the wealth, the memories. I kept the fortune because I couldn't bear to spend it without them. Every dollar felt like betrayal. But I also couldn't let it rot. So I preserved it, waited, hoped. You've lost someone too. You understand the weight of absence. But you've done something I couldn't. You've kept living. You've raised your daughter with love. You've worked yourself to exhaustion to give her a future. That's courage I never had. The wealth is yours now. All 270 million. Use it to build the life Sarah wanted for Emma. Use it to heal, but be warned, people will come. Family who ignored you will suddenly remember your name. Strangers will appear with claims. Opportunists will circle like wolves. Trust Patricia. She's protected this place for 3 decades. She knew Catherine. She loved Lily. She's been waiting for you. One more thing. This isn't just about money. It's about legacy. You have a chance to do something meaningful, to honor not just my family but yours. Don't squander it. Don't hide from it like I did. Build something beautiful. Your uncle, Richard Montgomery Hart. Michael sat back on his heels. $270 million. It still didn't feel real. Emma stood beside him, looking at the photographs on the walls. She looks like me, she said, pointing to Lily. Michael looked up. She was right. Lily had the same brown hair, the same curious eyes, the same small smile. Yeah, Michael said softly. She does. They sat in that room for a long time, surrounded by the past, holding the future. Finally, Michael stood. He carefully placed everything back in the chest, locked the ornate door behind them, led Emma back through the corridor, up the steps, into the library. The morning sun was now high. It streamed through the tall windows, painting everything gold. We should eat something, Michael said. Then we need to figure out what happens next. They were walking toward the kitchen when they heard it. A car. Gravel crunching under tires. Michael's blood went cold. He moved to the front window and looked out. A black sedan was coming up the driveway. Slow, deliberate. It parked near the entrance. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. She was older, maybe 70. Silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a dark coat despite the warm day. She moved with the careful precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime being cautious. She looked up at the house, directly at the window where Michael stood. Their eyes met. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just gave a single nod. Then she walked toward the front door. Michael heard the knock. 3 sharp raps. He looked at Emma. "Stay here," he said. He opened the door. The woman stood on the porch, hands clasped in front of her. Her eyes were a striking pale blue. They studied Michael with an intensity that made him want to step back. "Mr. Hart," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm Patricia Delacroix. I've been waiting a very long time to meet you. What happens next will turn this inheritance upside down, reveal truths Michael never expected, and remind us why sometimes the greatest fortunes come with the heaviest burdens." Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Michael stepped aside. Patricia entered the mansion like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Because Michael realized she had. She moved through the entrance hall with familiarity. Her eyes swept across the space, noting changes, checking details. She removed her coat and draped it over a chair. "You found the vaults," she said. It wasn't a question. Michael nodded. "Both of them." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "Then you know what you've inherited." "I know there's $270 million hidden in this house," Michael said. "What I don't know is why, or what I'm supposed to do with it." Patricia walked to the library. Michael followed. She stood before the hidden passage, looking down into the darkness. "May I?" she asked. Michael gestured for her to go ahead. They descended together. Emma had stayed upstairs, sensing this was adult business. In the first vault, Patricia moved among the glass cases like a curator in a museum. She stopped before a painting. A woman in a garden. "I was there when he bought this," she said. 1983, an estate sale in Boston. He paid $40,000 for it. Everyone thought he was mad. Her fingers ghosted over the glass. It's worth $4.2 million now. She turned to Michael. Your uncle had a gift. He saw value where others saw risk. He invested in artists before they were famous, companies before they went public. He was patient, disciplined, brilliant, and heartbroken, Michael added. Patricia's eyes glistened. Yes, that too. She led him to the second chamber, stood before the photographs of Catherine and Lily. I was their housekeeper, she said. I lived in the cottage on the eastern edge of the property. I watched Lily grow from a baby to a beautiful little girl. I was here the morning Richard got the call about the accident. Michael said nothing, just listened. He screamed, Patricia continued, a sound I'll never forget. Then he locked himself in the master bedroom for 3 days. When he finally came out, he was different, hollowed. He left the house that week, asked me to maintain it, paid me generously. I've been here ever since. Why? Michael asked. Why stay so long? Patricia looked at him. Because he asked. Because I loved them too, and because I hoped one day he'd find the strength to come back. She paused. He never did. But you're here now. She moved to the chest, opened it, looked at the bearer bonds, the gold. This is the liquidity, she said, easily converted to cash. The rest of the collection requires careful management. Auctions, private sales, legal documentation. Michael's head spun. I don't know how to do any of that. I'm a construction supervisor. I fix things that are broken. I don't know anything about art or investments or estates. That's why I'm here, Patricia said. I've been managing this for 32 years. I know every piece, every document, every legal detail. Your uncle set up the trust to transfer cleanly to you. No probate, no tax complications. It's all been prepared. She pulled a folder from a bag she'd brought. Inside were documents, account numbers, contact information for lawyers, accountants, appraisers. This is your team, she said. People your uncle trusted. People who've been waiting. For what? For the Guardian. Patricia sat on a small bench against the wall. Your uncle believed wealth without purpose was poison. He refused to spend this money on himself because he felt he didn't deserve happiness, but he also refused to let it disappear. So he waited, watched, searched for someone who understood loss but hadn't let it destroy them. She looked at Michael. He chose you not because you're family, but because you're worthy. Michael laughed bitterly. I'm barely keeping my head above water. I'm 38 years old and I can't afford my daughter's school supplies. How does that make me worthy? Because you keep trying, Patricia said. Because you haven't given up. Because despite everything, you still show up for Emma with love. That's what Richard saw. That's what he wanted to preserve. Michael sat beside her. The weight of the past 2 days pressed down on him. I don't know if I can do this. You can, Patricia said, and you will. But you need to understand something. This inheritance will bring people, family members you haven't heard from in years, lawyers with claims, con artists with schemes, even people who might threaten you. As if summoned by her words, they heard it. Another car. Michael and Patricia climbed back to the main level. Emma was at the window. Daddy, she said nervously. There's more people. Michael looked out. 3 cars this time. Expensive ones. They parked in a line. Doors opened. People emerged. He recognized some of them from the funeral. His cousin Derek, Aunt Miriam, his uncles, former business partner. They approached the house with purpose, determined, expectant. Patricia's jaw tightened. It's starting. The knock came. Harder than Patricia's, demanding. Michael opened the door. Derek stood in front. He was 42. Slick hair, expensive suit, a smile that never reached his eyes. Michael, he said warmly, we've been looking for you. Thought we should check in, see how you're handling things. Michael didn't move from the doorway. I'm fine. Can we come in? Derek asked. It's family. We should talk. Michael glanced back at Patricia. She gave a subtle shake of her head. "Actually," Michael said, "now's not a good time." Derek's smile faltered. "We heard about the inheritance, about the house. We think there might have been a mistake." "There was no mistake," Michael said. Derek's expression hardened. Uncle Richard wasn't in his right mind at the end. Cancer does things to people, makes them confused. The will can be contested. "You should contest it," Michael said. "Get a lawyer. Do what you need to do, but right now, you need to leave." Aunt Miriam stepped forward. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Michael, honey, we're just trying to help. You're in over your head. This estate is complicated. You need family support." "You didn't support me when Sarah died," Michael said quietly. "Didn't call. Didn't visit. Didn't help when I was drowning in medical bills and grief. So forgive me if I don't trust your concern now." The third person, the business partner, spoke up. "There are legal obligations, financial responsibilities. You can't just take everything and lock us out." "Watch me," Michael said. He closed the door, locked it. Through the window, he watched them argue on the porch. Derek pulled out a phone, made a call. They stood there for 5 more minutes. Then, finally, they left. But Michael knew they'd be back. Patricia touched his shoulder. That was brave. Michael's hands were shaking. "I don't feel brave." "You will," she said. "This is just the beginning." Over the next week, the pressure mounted. Derek filed paperwork contesting the will. Aunt Miriam showed up with a lawyer. The business partner claimed Richard had made promises, promised him shares in the estate. Phone calls came at all hours. Letters arrived, some threatening legal action, some offering to help for a percentage, some just asking for money. Michael didn't answer any of them. He spent his days learning. Patricia walked him through every aspect of the estate, the investments, the collection, the legal protections Richard had put in place. Emma went back to school. Michael told her principal they might be moving soon. He didn't tell anyone why. At night, Michael returned to the mansion. He'd started staying there. The apartment felt too small now, too exposed. Here, behind gates and walls, he could think. He spent hours reading his uncle's journals, learning the man's philosophies, his strategies, his regrets. He began to understand. Richard hadn't just left him money. He'd left him a blueprint, a way to turn wealth into meaning. One evening, 2 weeks after finding the vault, Michael sat in Richard's study. The sun was setting. The sky outside burned orange and purple. He opened the leather portfolio Patricia had given him. Inside were proposals, things Richard had planned but never executed, a foundation to support widowed parents, scholarship programs for children who'd lost a parent, investments in grief counseling centers. Michael read through each one. His chest grew tight. Richard had spent 30 years planning how to turn his pain into purpose. He just never had the courage to do it himself. Now that courage had to come from Michael. He picked up a pen, started making notes, modifications to Richard's plans, additions, personal touches. He worked late into the night. When he finally looked up, the moon was high, and standing in the doorway was Patricia. "You're ready?" she said. Michael looked at the papers spread across the desk. "I think I'm starting to be." She smiled. Richard would be proud. The next morning, Michael called a meeting. He invited the lawyers, the accountants, Patricia. They gathered in the mansion's dining room. Michael stood at the head of the table. His hands were steady now. "I've made decisions," he said, "about the estate, about what happens next." He laid out his plan, the foundation, the scholarships, the investments in mental health and grief support. He'd keep enough to secure Emma's future, to live comfortably. But the bulk of the fortune would go to work, helping others, honoring Sarah, honoring Catherine and Lily, honoring everyone who'd ever felt the weight of loss. The lawyers took notes, asked questions. By the end of the meeting, the framework was clear. It would take months to implement, maybe years, but it was possible. It was real. As everyone filed out, Patricia remained. She handed Michael one final envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Richard left it with me," she said. "Told me to give it to you once you decided what kind of man you wanted to be." Michael opened it. Inside was a short note. "Michael, if Patricia gave you this, it means you've chosen purpose over profit. It means you're stronger than I ever was. The money is yours. The future is yours. Build something beautiful. Build something that lasts. And know that wherever Catherine and Lily are, they're smiling. Thank you for being the guardian I never could be. Richard." Michael folded the letter carefully, looked up at Patricia. His eyes were wet. "I'm scared." "Good," she said. "Fear means you understand what's at stake." She placed a hand over his. "But you're not alone. You have me. You have your team. And you have something Richard never had after his loss." She smiled. "You have Emma. And she has you." That night, Michael sat with Emma in the library. They were looking through photo albums Patricia had brought from storage. Pictures of Catherine and Lily, of Richard young and happy. Emma studied the photos carefully. "They were a family," she said. "Like us." Michael pulled her close. "Yeah, baby, like us. Except now we get to build something they never could." Emma looked up at him. "What do we build?" "Something good," Michael said. "Something that helps people who are hurting. Something your mom would be proud of." Emma smiled. She nodded against his chest. Outside, the moon rose over the mansion. The trees whispered in the wind. And somewhere in the distance, a car engine started. Headlights cut through the darkness. The car drove slowly past the gates. Stopped. Someone inside took photographs. Then the car drove away. Michael saw it from the window. His jaw tightened. They were being watched. The threats were coming. But he wasn't the same man who'd arrived here 3 weeks ago. That man had been broken, surviving, just trying to make it through each day. This man was different. He had purpose now. He had resources. He had support, and he had something worth protecting. Not just money, a legacy, a mission, a future. The fight was coming. Michael knew that. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt ready. Because he wasn't just inheriting a fortune, he was inheriting a responsibility, and he would honor it, no matter what it cost, no matter who came for him. The Guardian had arrived, and he wasn't going anywhere. The phone calls started at 6 in the morning. Michael woke to the sound of his cell phone vibrating against the nightstand. He grabbed it, eyes still heavy with sleep. The screen showed a number he didn't recognize. He let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later it rang again. Different number. He answered this time, his voice rough. "Hello? Mr. Hart?" A woman's voice. Clipped. Professional. "This is Jennifer Caldwell from Caldwell and Associates. We represent your cousin Derek Hart in the matter of the Montgomery estate. We'd like to schedule a deposition." Michael sat up. "It's 6 in the morning. We're calling to ensure you receive proper notice. We've filed a motion to freeze all estate assets pending resolution of our client's claim. You should receive the paperwork today." The line went dead. Michael stared at the phone. Beside him, Emma stirred in the guest bed. They'd been sleeping in adjoining rooms in the mansion. The apartment lease had expired and Michael hadn't renewed it. This place was home now, even if it came with complications. Patricia arrived an hour later with coffee and bad news. She spread documents across the kitchen table. Derek's filing was aggressive. He claimed Richard had promised him a share of the estate years ago, claimed there were verbal agreements, business partnerships that entitled him to compensation. "It's all fabricated," Patricia said. Richard barely spoke to Derek. Hadn't seen him in over a decade. "Can they freeze the assets?" Michael asked. Patricia shook her head. "Not easily. The trust structure is solid, but they can make things difficult. Drag this out for months, years even." Michael rubbed his face. "I don't have years." Patricia pulled out another folder. "Then there's this." She slid a newspaper clipping across the table. local section. The headline read, "Mysterious Inheritance Sparks Family Feud." The article detailed the mansion, the estate, Michael's sudden windfall. It quoted unnamed sources claiming the will was suspicious, that Michael had manipulated a dying man. "Who talked to the press?" Michael asked. Patricia's expression was grim. "Derek, maybe others. The point is, it's out there now. People know. And that's bad because wealth attracts attention. The wrong kind." She paused. "You need security. Real security. Cameras. Possibly guards." Michael laughed bitterly. "I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with bars on the windows. Now I need guards." "You have $270 million, Patricia said flatly. "Yes, you need guards." By afternoon, a security company Patricia trusted had installed cameras around the property, motion sensors, reinforced locks, a monitoring system that fed to both Michael's phone and Patricia's. It felt excessive. It felt necessary. Emma came home from school subdued. Michael met her at the door. "Hey, kiddo, how was your day?" She shrugged, dropped her backpack. Kids were asking questions. What kind of questions? About the house? About money? Emily's mum asked if we were millionaires now. Her voice was small, uncertain. Michael knelt in front of her. "What did you tell her?" "That we have a big house, that's all." She looked up at him. "Are we millionaires, Daddy?" Michael chose his words carefully. "We have resources now that we didn't have before, but that doesn't change who we are. We're still us." "Emily's mum said her dad wants to talk to you about investing." Emma paused. "I don't think she was being nice about it." Michael's jaw tightened. People are going to say things, ask for things. It doesn't mean we have to listen. But Emma looked worried. "Older than 8. Are we in trouble?" "No, baby, we're not in trouble. We're just figuring things out." That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael walked the property. The security lights cast harsh shadows across the overgrown gardens. He could see the cameras now, red lights blinking in the darkness, watching, protecting. He felt trapped and safe at the same time. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "You don't deserve what you stole. People are watching." Michael deleted it. Another text came immediately. This one with a photo. Michael's truck, taken from a distance. Today. He felt ice in his veins. He called Patricia. She answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" He told her about the texts. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm coming over. Don't leave the house." She arrived 20 minutes later with a man Michael hadn't met. Tall, mid-50s, military bearing. Patricia introduced him. "This is James Rooker. He's former Secret Service. He specializes in personal security." Rooker shook Michael's hand. His grip was firm, professional. "Miss Delacroix filled me in. You've got someone escalating." Michael showed him the texts. Rooker examined them, studied the photo. "This was taken from the main road, outside your gate." He looked up. "You need to take this seriously. People who send threats like this, they're testing boundaries." "What do you suggest?" Michael asked. "Full security assessment. Protective detail when you leave the property, especially with your daughter. And we need to identify who's sending these." Rooker paused. "I have contacts who can help with that." Michael felt the walls closing in. A week ago, he'd been a construction supervisor. Now he needed bodyguards. "This is insane." "This is reality," Rooker said, not unkindly. "Wealth makes you a target, especially sudden wealth, especially when others think they're entitled to it." Over the next week, Rooker's team did a complete assessment. They found weaknesses in the perimeter, blind spots in the camera coverage. They installed additional measures, hired 2 security personnel for rotating shifts. It cost thousands. Michael signed the checks anyway, because Emma's face kept appearing in his mind, her small voice asking if they were in trouble. The legal pressure intensified. Derek's lawyers filed motion after motion, demanding access to estate records, questioning Patricia's role as trustee, claiming Richard had been coerced. Michael's legal team responded to each one, but it was exhausting. Every day brought new paperwork, new accusations, new battles, and then the others started coming. Aunt Miriam showed up with her own lawyer. She claimed Richard had promised to pay for her son's college education, demanded $2 million. Michael's lawyer dismissed it. There was no documentation, no evidence. But Miriam went to the press, told a sob story about a heartless nephew hoarding wealth while family suffered. Richard's former business partner filed a lawsuit, claimed there were outstanding debts, verbal agreements about profit sharing. Michael's legal team proved it was false, but the damage was done. More headlines, more whispers. People Michael had never met sent letters, emails, messages through social media. Some asked politely for help, others demanded it. A few threatened violence if he didn't share. Michael stopped reading them, handed everything to Patricia and the legal team. But the weight pressed down on him anyway. He'd wake at 3 a.m, heart racing, wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake, wondering if he should just give it all away and go back to his simple life. Except he couldn't, because he'd seen what this money could do. The foundation was taking shape. The lawyers had drafted the charter, scholarships for children who'd lost parents, grants for grief counseling programs, support for widowed parents struggling like he had struggled. It was real, it was possible, but only if he could hold on. Emma noticed. Of course she did. Children always notice. She started having nightmares, waking up crying, afraid of shadows, afraid of strangers. Michael held her, whispered reassurances, but he felt like a liar, because he was afraid too. One morning, Patricia arrived early. Her face was ashen. "We have a problem." She handed Michael a document. Foreclosure notice. Michael read it twice. "This doesn't make sense. The property taxes are paid. The trust covers everything." "Someone filed a fraudulent lien," Patricia said. "Claimed the estate owed money for construction work done in 2020. Completely fabricated. But it's tied up the property title." Michael felt rage building, hot and sharp. "Who did this?" Patricia's voice was tight. "We're investigating, but whoever it is, they know what they're doing. This isn't amateur hour. Can we fight it? Yes, but it takes time. And until we do, technically, the property is encumbered." She paused. "They're trying to force you to settle, pay them to go away." Michael's hands clenched into fists. "I'm not paying extortion. Then we fight. But Michael, you need to understand. This is going to get worse before it gets better. These people, they smell blood in the water. They think you're vulnerable." "Let them think that," Michael said. His voice was harder than he'd ever heard it. "Maybe I am. But I'm not giving up." That afternoon, Michael did something he hadn't done since Sarah died. He went to visit her grave. The cemetery was quiet. Spring flowers bloomed along the pathways. He sat on the grass beside her headstone, traced her name with his fingers. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered. "Everyone wants a piece. Everyone thinks they're entitled. I'm so tired, Sarah. I just want to take care of Emma, keep her safe. But I don't know how." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere a bird sang. Michael closed his eyes, and in the silence he remembered. Sarah's voice. Not a hallucination, just memory, clear and strong. "You're stronger than you think, Michael. You've always been stronger than you think." He opened his eyes, looked at her name again. "I miss you." But sitting there, surrounded by stone and earth and memory, something shifted in him. Sarah had fought cancer for 2 years. She'd never given up, never complained, never stopped believing. And when she died, she'd made him promise to keep going, to give Emma a beautiful life, to find joy again. He'd kept the first part of that promise. He'd kept going, barely, but he'd survived. Now he had a chance to do more than survive, to actually build something, and he was letting fear stop him, letting other people's greed and anger dictate his choices. No more. Michael stood, brushed grass from his jeans. He looked at Sarah's headstone one more time. "I'm going to fight," he said, "for Emma, for the foundation, for everything you believed we could be." He drove back to the mansion with new resolve, called Patricia, called the lawyers, called Rooker. "We're done playing defense," he told them. "I want to know who's behind the fraudulent lien, who's sending the threats, who's feeding information to the press, and I want to hit back." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Michael's voice didn't waver. "These people think I'm an easy target. They think I'll fold. They're wrong." Over the next 2 weeks, Michael's team went to work. Rooker's investigators traced the threatening texts, found they came from a burner phone, but the phone had been purchased with a credit card. The card belonged to Derek's girlfriend. Confronted with evidence, she admitted Derek had asked her to buy it, claimed she didn't know why, but it was enough. Michael's lawyers filed for a restraining order, presented the texts, the photo, Derek's connection. A judge granted it. Derek was ordered to stay at least 500 feet from Michael, Emma, and the property. Violation would mean arrest. The fraudulent lien was harder, but Patricia's team traced it to a shell company. The shell company's registered agent was Richard's former business partner, the same man claiming verbal agreements. When confronted with evidence of fraud, he backpedaled, claimed it was a misunderstanding, dropped his lawsuit, withdrew the lien, threatened criminal charges if he came near the estate again. Aunt Miriam's claim fell apart under scrutiny. Her son had graduated college in 2015, 9 years before Richard's death. If Richard had promised to pay, he'd already missed it by nearly a decade. Her lawyer quietly withdrew the claim. Miriam stopped talking to the press. One by one, the threats diminished, the pressure eased, not completely. There were still people circling, still people hoping for a payout, but the worst of it passed. Michael had stood his ground, and he was still standing. But the toll was real. Michael had lost 15 pounds. He wasn't sleeping well. The stress showed in his face, in the tightness around his eyes. Emma was doing better. The nightmares had stopped. But she was quieter now, more cautious. She'd learned that the world could be cruel. Michael hated that. One evening, he found her in the library. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by photo albums, the ones Patricia had brought, pictures of Lily. "Daddy," she said without looking up, "do you think Lily would have liked me?" Michael sat beside her. "I think she would have loved you." Emma turned a page, studied a photo of Lily on a bicycle, the same bicycle from Richard's journal entry. "She looks happy." She was, Michael said, for a little while. Emma looked at him, her eyes too knowing. Then she was sad. "Like us." Michael's throat tightened. "Yeah, baby, like us." "But we're not sad anymore," Emma said. "Are we? We have the house, we have Patricia, we have plans for the foundation." She paused. "Mom would like that." Michael pulled her close. "Yeah, she would." Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "I heard you talking to Rooker about the people who were mean. Are they gone now?" "Most of them," Michael said. "And the ones who aren't, we're ready for." "Good." Emma's voice was small but fierce. "Because this is our house now, and nobody gets to take it." Michael kissed the top of her head. "That's right, sweetheart. Nobody gets to take it." The next morning, Michael called a meeting. His full team, lawyers, accountants, Patricia, Rooker. They gathered in the mansion's dining room. Michael stood at the head of the table. He'd prepared notes, talking points. But when he opened his mouth, the notes didn't matter. "I want to thank you all," he said, "for protecting us, for fighting when I didn't know how." He paused. "But we're done being reactive. We're moving forward." He laid out his vision. The foundation would launch in 3 months. Scholarships would be announced. Partnerships with grief counseling centers would be established. They'd host an event here at the mansion. Invite the community. Show them what Richard had built, what it was becoming. Patricia smiled. Richard would be proud. Michael shook his head. Richard hid. I'm not going to hide. This wealth was built in silence. It's going to be used in the open. The lawyers took notes, started planning. By the end of the meeting, they had a timeline, a strategy, a purpose. As everyone filed out, Rooker stayed behind. You've changed, he observed. Michael looked at him. Had to. Rooker nodded. Good. Because this isn't over. You fought off the amateurs. But there are always professionals. People who see this kind of wealth and get ideas. I know, Michael said. That's why you're still here. Rooker smiled slightly. Just keep your eyes open, trust your instincts, and don't get comfortable. Michael wouldn't. Couldn't. But for the first time since finding the vault, he felt like he understood what his uncle had tried to tell him. Wealth wasn't the gift. Responsibility was. The chance to do something meaningful. The opportunity to turn pain into purpose. That night, Michael returned to Richard's study. He sat at the desk, opened the final journal he hadn't read yet. This one was dated from Richard's last months. The handwriting was shaky. Entries were short, scattered. July 3rd, 2024. The doctor confirmed it. 6 months, maybe less. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of leaving this unfinished. I've watched Michael from a distance for 15 years. He's everything I should have been. Strong, dedicated, loving. He's raised Emma with the same devotion Catherine and I gave Lily. He deserves this chance. I just hope he's ready for what comes with it. July 30th, 2024. Made final arrangements with Patricia. She'll guide him. She's the only one who remembers what this place was supposed to be. A home full of love, not a tomb full of regrets. If Michael can transform it back, if he can make it live again, then maybe my mistakes weren't for nothing. August 22nd, 2024. Saw Emma today, from a distance. She was leaving school, backpack too big for her small frame. She looked so much like Lily. Same hair, same smile, same brightness. Michael picked her up, swung her around. She laughed. That sound. God, I miss that sound. I hope they fill this house with laughter again. It's been silent too long. September 15th, 2024. Told Patricia to give Michael the letter only after he decides who he wants to be. If he chooses greed, she burns everything. If he chooses purpose, she supports him. I believe he'll choose right. He's Sarah's husband. Sarah was the kind of person who saw good in everyone. She chose Michael. That tells me everything. October 1st, 2024. Getting weaker, hard to write, but I need to record this. Michael lost Sarah 2 years ago. He's still standing, still showing up for Emma, still working, still living. I lost Catherine and Lily 46 years ago. I stopped living that day. He's better than me, stronger. I'm giving him what I couldn't use, hoping he'll do what I couldn't, build something beautiful from something broken. The journal ended there. Michael sat back, tears on his face. His uncle had been watching, caring, hoping, all those years, all that silence. It had been protection, preparation, waiting for the right moment, the right person. Michael wiped his eyes, stood, walked to the window. The grounds stretched out before him. Tomorrow, landscapers would start clearing the overgrowth, restoring the gardens, bringing life back to the earth. Inside, contractors would begin repairs, fixing what time had broken, preserving what mattered. It would take months, but slowly, carefully, the mansion would transform, from a monument to grief into a beacon of hope. Michael thought about the foundation, the scholarships, the programs, the lives that would change. Children who'd lost parents would get education. Parents who'd lost partners would get support. People drowning in grief would find help. Because one man had preserved a fortune, and another had found the courage to use it. He pulled out his phone, texted Patricia, "Let's move the timeline up. I want the foundation operational in 6 weeks, not 3 months." Her response came quickly. "That's ambitious," he typed back. "I'm done waiting. We start now." The next morning, Michael took Emma to breakfast at a diner in town. Just the two of them. No security, no lawyers, just a father and daughter sharing pancakes. Emma drowned hers in syrup, smiled with sticky lips. "Daddy," she said, "are you happy?" Michael considered the question. A month ago he would have said no. Would have said he was surviving, getting by, doing his best but drowning. Now? He looked at his daughter, at her bright eyes and hopeful face, thought about the mansion, the foundation, the purpose. "Yeah, baby," he said. "I think I am." "Good," Emma said. She reached across the table, took his hand. "Mom would be happy too." Michael squeezed her fingers. "How do you know?" "Because you're helping people. That's what Mom always wanted. To help people." Emma paused. "Now you can. Because of Uncle Richard." Michael's heart swelled. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" She grinned. "I know." They finished breakfast, drove back to the mansion. As they pulled up the driveway, Michael saw Patricia's car, saw Rooker's SUV, saw the contractor's trucks. The property was alive with movement, with purpose, with future. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt, looked at the house. "It's not scary anymore, is it?" "No," Michael said. "It's not. It's home." "Yeah, kiddo, it's home." They climbed out, walked toward the entrance. The doors stood open. Inside, people were working, painting, repairing, transforming. Michael stopped on the threshold, looked back at the grounds, the gates, the road beyond. Somewhere out there, threats still existed. People still wanted what he had. Challenges would come, but he was ready now. He'd been tested, pushed, threatened, and he'd stood firm, not because he was fearless, but because he had something worth protecting, not money. Purpose. Patricia met them inside, handed Michael a folder. "First draft of the Foundation Charter. I need your approval to move forward." Michael opened it. "Read the mission statement. Provide support, education, and hope to families experiencing loss. Honor those we've loved. Empower those who remain." He smiled. "It's perfect." Patricia nodded. "Then we're official. The foundation launches in 6 weeks. Invitations go out tomorrow." Michael closed the folder, looked around the entrance hall. Workers were removing old wallpaper, revealing the original stone beneath. It was beautiful, raw and honest and strong. "This house hid for too long," he said. "No more hiding." Patricia's eyes shone. "Richard tried to bury his pain here. You're setting it free." Michael thought about that. About Richard's journals, about Catherine and Lily, about Sarah, about Emma, about all the people who'd loved and lost and somehow found the strength to keep going. "Setting it free," he repeated. "Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing." That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael returned to the vault. Not the main one, the second chamber, the shrine. He stood before the photographs of Catherine and Lily, looked at their smiling faces. "I promise," he whispered, "I'll make this place live again. I'll fill it with the laughter Richard couldn't. I'll use what he saved to help others heal." He paused. "Thank you for trusting me." The vault was silent, but Michael felt something. Not supernatural, just peace. The kind that comes when you finally understand your path, when you stop running from responsibility and embrace it instead. He locked the chamber, climbed back to the main house. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, he knew that, but he also knew he could handle them, because he wasn't the broken man who'd come here a month ago. He'd been forged in fire, tested by greed and malice and fear, and he'd emerged stronger, not perfect, not fearless, but determined, the guardian his uncle had hoped for, the father Emma deserved, the man Sarah had believed he could be. Michael Hart stood in the entrance hall of the mansion. His mansion, his responsibility, his future. And for the first time in 2 years, he felt whole. The crucible had tested him. The pressure had shaped him. The threats had strengthened him. And now, finally, he was ready. Ready to build, ready to lead, ready to transform a fortune into a legacy that would outlast them all. 6 months had passed since Michael Hart had stood in that vault for the first time. 6 months since his world had split open and revealed possibilities he'd never imagined. Now, on a bright October morning, he stood in front of the mansion and barely recognized it. The overgrown gardens had been transformed into careful landscapes. Stone pathways wound through beds of autumn flowers. The fountain in the circular drive, which had been dry and cracked, now bubbled with clear water. The mansion itself glowed. Windows had been replaced, stone had been cleaned and repaired, the roof no longer sagged. The whole structure seemed to stand taller, prouder, as if it had remembered its original purpose. Michael wore a suit, not the cheap one from the funeral. This one actually fit. Patricia had insisted he look the part. "You're the face of the foundation now," she'd said. "People need to see you as legitimate." He still felt like a fraud sometimes, like a construction worker playing dress-up. But Emma had told him that morning that he looked like a superhero, and that made the uncomfortable collar worth it. Today was the day, the official opening of the Montgomery Hart Foundation. The first wing of the mansion would be revealed to the public, the Scholarship Center. Michael had spent weeks preparing, reviewing applications, meeting with the board Patricia had helped assemble, learning the language of philanthropy. It still felt strange. 6 months ago, he'd been choosing between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. Now he was approving grants worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But he'd learned something crucial. The money wasn't his to keep. It was his to steward, his to use wisely, his to multiply into impact. Richard had understood that, had spent 32 years preserving wealth, not for personal gain, but for eventual purpose. Now Michael was fulfilling that purpose. And it felt right, in a way nothing had felt right since Sarah died. Patricia appeared on the steps. Her silver hair was elegantly styled. She wore a dark blue dress that made her look like royalty. "Everything ready?" she asked. Michael nodded. "Guests start arriving in an hour. Emma is helping arrange the photo displays," Patricia said with a smile. "She's very particular about where each one goes." Michael grinned. She gets that from her mother. Sarah had the same eye for detail. They walked inside together. The entrance hall had been restored to its original grandeur. The chandelier now sparkled. The marble floor gleamed. The grand staircase had been refinished. But what made Michael's chest tighten was seeing it filled with life. Volunteers arranged flowers. Caterers set up tables. A string quartet practiced in the corner. The house wasn't silent anymore, wasn't frozen. It breathed. The Scholarship Center occupied the entire East Wing. 6 offices, a computer lab, a library, a meeting space, everything a student or parent might need to navigate the application process. Michael had hired 3 full-time counselors, people who understood loss, who could guide families through not just paperwork but grief. The walls were covered with photographs, not just of Lily and Catherine, not just of Sarah, but of dozens of families, people who'd lost someone, people the foundation would help. Each photo had a story, each story had a name. It wasn't abstract anymore, it was real. Emma found him in the library. She was wearing a new dress, deep green with small flowers embroidered along the hem. Her hair was pulled back with a ribbon. She looked so grown up. "Daddy," she said, "I put Mum's picture in the main hall, right next to Lily's. Is that okay?" Michael's throat tightened. "That's perfect, baby." She took his hand. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," he admitted. Emma squeezed his fingers. "Mum used to say being scared means you care." If you didn't care, you wouldn't be nervous. Michael looked down at his daughter. When did you get so wise? She shrugged. I've been paying attention. The first guests arrived at 11. Local families. People from Millbrook Hollow and surrounding towns. Some had applied for scholarships. Others had just heard about the foundation and were curious. Michael greeted each one personally, shook hands, listened to stories. A widow with 3 children told him the scholarship meant her oldest could attend college, something she'd thought impossible after her husband died. A single father explained that the grief counseling program had saved his family, helped them process loss in healthy ways. Each conversation reinforced why Michael was doing this. These weren't theoretical beneficiaries. They were real people, struggling, surviving, hoping. And now, because of Richard's preserved fortune and Michael's willingness to use it, they had support. By noon, hundreds of people filled the mansion. The scholarship center was packed. The art gallery in the West Wing was open for viewing. Michael had worked with curators to display some of Richard's collection, the paintings, the sculptures, pieces worth millions, but instead of hoarding them in darkness, they were now available for the public to experience. School groups would tour. Art students could study. Beauty that had been buried was now shared. The mayor of Millbrook Hollow gave a speech. He talked about how the foundation had already impacted the community, how the mansion had brought visitors, how local businesses were thriving because of increased traffic. Michael stood to the side, uncomfortable with the praise. But Patricia touched his arm. "Let them celebrate," she whispered. "This is important." Then it was Michael's turn to speak. He stepped up to the microphone set up in the entrance hall, looked out at the crowd, saw familiar faces, Rooker standing near the back, the lawyers who'd fought for him, the security team, volunteers, recipients, Emma in the front row holding Patricia's hand. Michael cleared his throat. 6 months ago, he began, I inherited this house. I didn't know my uncle well, didn't understand why he chose me. But standing here today, I think I finally get it. He paused. My uncle Richard lost his wife Catherine and daughter Lily 46 years ago. That loss broke him. He built this mansion for them, for their future. When they died, he couldn't bear to live here, couldn't bear to let anyone else live here either, so he locked it up, preserved it, waited. The room was silent. People leaned in. Michael continued. I lost my wife Sarah 2 years ago. Cancer, she was 35. We had an 8-year-old daughter. I thought my life was over. Thought I'd just survive, work, pay bills, get through each day. He looked at Emma. But then I inherited this place, and with it, a fortune I never expected, and a choice. He gestured to the restored space around them. I could have kept it all private, sold the collection, lived quietly. But that's what Richard did, and he spent 32 years regretting it. So instead, I decided to do what he couldn't. Use this wealth to help others, to turn our collective loss into someone else's hope. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Michael smiled. The Montgomery Hart Foundation exists because of Richard's vision and sacrifice, because of Patricia's dedication to preserving what he built, and because of every person who's ever lost someone and wondered if they'd survive. He paused. We survive, and with support, we can do more than survive. We can thrive. Applause filled the hall, warm and genuine. Michael stepped back from the microphone. His hands were shaking, but Emma was beaming at him, and that made everything worth it. After the speeches, Michael gave tours, small groups walking through the scholarship center, the art gallery, the community workshop space that would open next month. This third wing would offer classes, job training, skills development. Michael planned to teach some himself. Construction basics, home repair, the practical skills that had kept him employed, that had given him purpose. One woman stopped him in the gallery. She was older, maybe 70, tears on her cheeks. She stood before one of the paintings, a woman in a garden, the same one Patricia had shown him months ago. "I knew Catherine," the woman said. "We were friends before she married Richard. She loved gardens. This painting, it looks just like her." Michael stood beside her. "I wish I'd known them." The woman smiled through her tears. Catherine would have loved this, seeing her home filled with people again, filled with purpose. She touched the frame gently. Richard loved her so much. When she died, part of him died too. But maybe, she looked at Michael, maybe this is how he comes back to life. Michael had to step away, find a quiet corner, breathe. The weight of what he was doing kept hitting him in unexpected moments. He wasn't just managing money. He was healing something broken, something that had been shattered 46 years ago. Patricia found him. "You okay?" Michael nodded. "Just overwhelmed." She handed him a folder. "You should see this. Applications for the next scholarship cycle. We've received over 300. All qualifying candidates. Families dealing with loss." 300, Michael repeated. "We can't fund them all." Patricia smiled. "Not yet. But the Foundation's investments are performing well. By next year, we'll be able to triple our capacity." She paused. "Richard's wealth is multiplying. Being used properly, it generates more good every year." That night, after the crowds had gone and the mansion had quieted, Michael sat with Emma in what had become their favorite room, the library. She was reading. He was reviewing applications. Each folder contained a story, a loss, a struggle, a hope. "Daddy," Emma said without looking up from her book, "do you think we're doing enough?" Michael set down the folder he was reading. "What do you mean?" She closed her book. "We have so much. And there are so many people who need help. Will we ever help everyone?" Michael considered this. "Probably not," he said honestly. "But we'll help as many as we can. And maybe by helping some, we inspire others to help more." He paused. "It's like ripples in water. One action creates waves." Emma thought about that, then nodded. "I want to help too, when I'm older. Maybe be on the board or something." Michael smiled. "You're already helping. You chose the photos for the scholarship center. You talk to the families who visit. You remind everyone why we're doing this." She leaned against him. "Mom would be proud." "Yeah," Michael whispered. "She would be." The following weeks brought routine. Michael's days were filled with foundation work, reviewing applications, meeting with board members, planning expansions. The community workshop wing was scheduled to open in November. They'd hired instructors, mechanics, electricians, carpenters, people who could teach practical skills to those who needed them. Michael would teach a class on basic home repair, weekends, free to anyone enrolled in the Foundation's programs. He'd already prepared his curriculum: how to fix a leaky faucet, patch drywall, replace a light fixture, simple things that saved money, that gave people control over their spaces. Emma had started at a new school, closer to the mansion. She'd been nervous at first, worried kids would treat her differently because of the Foundation, because of the money. But she'd found friends, real ones, kids who liked her for herself. She'd joined the art club, started painting. Her work covered the walls of their private quarters in the mansion. Michael loved every piece. Patricia had fully transitioned into her role as Foundation Director. She managed the staff, coordinated programs, handled logistics. She was brilliant at it. Michael had worried she might resent the workload, but she seemed more alive than ever. "This is what Richard wanted for me," she told Michael one day. "Purpose. I spent 32 years maintaining an empty house. Now I'm building something that lasts." The legal troubles had mostly resolved. Derek's restraining order was still in effect. He'd moved to another state, stopped making claims. The other family members had backed off after their cases fell apart. Some had even apologized. Aunt Miriam sent a letter, brief but genuine. She admitted she'd been motivated by greed and jealousy, said she was ashamed. Michael wrote back, forgave her, even invited her to the foundation's grand opening in December. Richard's former business partner faced charges for the fraudulent lien. He'd pleaded guilty, received probation and fines. Michael didn't feel vindicated, just sad. Sad that people let greed destroy their integrity. But those battles were behind him now. Michael focused on the work, the impact, the lives changing because of choices he'd made. One afternoon, a man appeared at the foundation offices, unannounced. He was in his 50s, wearing work boots and a faded jacket. He asked to speak with Michael Hart. Michael came out of his office. "Can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "My name's James Morrow. My daughter Jenny applied for one of your scholarships." Michael shook his hand. "Have a seat. Let's talk." They sat in Michael's office. James explained his situation. His wife had died 3 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. He'd been raising Jenny and her younger brother alone, working construction, barely making ends meet. Jenny wanted to be a nurse. She had the grades, the drive, but no money for college. "We just received the notification," James said. His voice cracked. "Jenny got the scholarship. Full ride. 4 years." Michael smiled. She earned it. Her application was outstanding. James wiped his eyes. "You don't understand. I thought I'd failed her. Thought she'd have to give up her dreams because I couldn't provide." He looked at Michael. "You gave her a future." Michael shook his head. "We're just helping. She'll create her own future." James stood, extended his hand again. "I don't know how to thank you." Michael gripped his hand firmly. "Tell Jenny to work hard. Help others when she can. That's thanks enough." After James left, Michael sat at his desk, stared out the window at the gardens. Moments like that were why he'd chosen this path. Jenny Morrow would become a nurse, would save lives, would make her own impact. And it started here, with a scholarship funded by a fortune preserved for decades. The ripples Patricia had mentioned. Spreading outward. In November, the community workshop wing opened. The event was smaller than the scholarship center launch, more intimate, local families, people who'd benefit from the classes. Michael gave a brief speech, then stepped back and let the instructors take over. Showed people the spaces, the tools, the opportunities. A young mother approached him afterward. She had 2 small children clinging to her legs. "Mr. Hart," she said, "I'm enrolled in the electrical training program. It starts next week." "That's great," Michael said. "What made you choose that field?" "My husband was an electrician. He died last year. Accident on a job site." She paused. "I want to finish what he started, learn the trade, support our kids." Michael knelt down to the children's level. "Your mom's very brave." The little boy, maybe 5, looked at him seriously. "Our daddy's in heaven. But Mommy says we're gonna be okay." Michael's chest ached. "You are. And she's right. Your mum's brave and strong, just like you guys." Moments like that reminded Michael why the work mattered. It wasn't about the money, it was about the people, the stories, the futures being rebuilt. December arrived with cold winds and early snow. The mansion looked magical, dusted in white. Emma insisted they decorate. Put up a Christmas tree in the entrance hall, string lights along the banisters. Michael agreed. The house deserved to celebrate. The foundation's first annual gala was scheduled for December 15th. A fundraiser, a celebration, a chance to show the community what had been accomplished. Invitations had been sent to hundreds. Donors, recipients, community leaders, even some press. Patricia coordinated everything. She hired event planners, coordinated with caterers, arranged entertainment. Michael watched her work with admiration. She'd found her calling. The night of the gala arrived cold and clear. Stars filled the sky. Cars lined the driveway. People in formal wear walked through the front doors into warmth and light and music. The mansion had never looked more alive. Michael wore a tuxedo. Emma wore a deep red dress. They stood together greeting guests, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. Michael still felt out of place in fancy clothes, but he was learning to accept his role. The evening progressed beautifully. Dinner in the ballroom, speeches in the entrance hall, tours of the scholarship center and art gallery, music and dancing, laughter echoing through halls that had been silent for so long. Halfway through the evening, Patricia found Michael. "There's someone who wants to meet you." She led him to a quiet corner where an elderly man sat in a wheelchair. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile. Patricia made introductions. "Michael, this is Dr. William Chen." He was Richard's closest friend. They served together in Vietnam. Michael shook the doctor's hand. "I didn't know my uncle served." Dr. Chen nodded. "We were medics together, 68 to 69. Richard saved my life. Took shrapnel meant for me." He gestured to his legs. "I took shrapnel anyway, but I'd be dead if not for him." Michael sat down. "I wish I'd known him better." "He was a good man," Dr. Chen said. Quiet, thoughtful. When he came back from Vietnam, he wanted to build something beautiful, something that represented hope instead of destruction. He paused. He built this house, started his business, met Catherine. For a while he had everything. "What happened after they died?" Michael asked. Dr. Chen sighed. "He called me, middle of the night. Couldn't stop crying. I flew out, stayed with him for a week. Tried to help, but the grief was too deep. He felt guilty for surviving when they didn't. He pushed everyone away, including me." Michael's throat tightened. "Did you stay in touch?" Dr. Chen shook his head. "He wouldn't take my calls, wouldn't respond to letters. I tried for years. Then I stopped, figured he wanted to be alone." The old man looked around the transformed mansion. "But seeing this, seeing what you've done, I realize he wasn't alone. He was planning, waiting, hoping someone would finish what he started." Michael wiped his eyes. "I'm trying to honor him." "You're doing more than that," Dr. Chen said. "You're giving him peace. Wherever he is, he's smiling." Later, Michael stepped outside for air. The December cold bit through his tuxedo, but he needed it, needed clarity. He walked to the gardens. Snow crunched under his shoes. The fountain was turned off for winter, but still beautiful. Ice crystals formed intricate patterns on the stone. He thought about Richard, about a young man coming home from war wanting beauty, building a mansion, falling in love, becoming a father, experiencing perfect happiness, then losing it all in one terrible moment, spending decades frozen, unable to move forward or let go. Michael understood that paralysis now. He'd felt it after Sarah died, the temptation to just stop, to exist but not live. But Emma had pulled him forward, and now Richard's legacy had given him purpose. Footsteps behind him. He turned. Patricia approached, carrying his coat. "You'll freeze," she said. He accepted it gratefully. Just needed a minute. They stood together in silence. Then Patricia spoke. Richard would have loved tonight, seeing the house like this, filled with people, with joy. Michael nodded. "I keep thinking about what Dr. Chen said, about Richard feeling guilty for surviving." Patricia looked at him. "Do you feel guilty for surviving Sarah?" Michael considered. "Sometimes. Yeah, she should be here, watching Emma grow, experiencing this." Patricia's voice was gentle, "But she's not, and you are, and you're doing something beautiful with the life you have. That's not betrayal, that's honor." Michael let those words sink in. "Maybe you're right." "I usually am," Patricia said with a small smile. "Now come inside. Emma's looking for you. Something about cutting the cake." They walked back together. The mansion glowed against the dark sky. Through the windows, Michael could see people dancing, laughing, celebrating. This house had held so much sadness, but tonight it held joy, and that felt like redemption. The new year brought expansion. The foundation announced plans for a second location, a satellite office in the city, easier access for urban families. Michael hired more staff, counselors, administrators, case managers. The operation was growing beyond what he could manage alone. And that was good. It meant impact was scaling. Emma turned 9 in January. They celebrated with a party at the mansion. Her new friends came. They played in the gardens, explored the house, ate cake in the ballroom, watching Emma laugh, watching her be a child without fear or worry. That was victory. In February, Michael received a call from Derek's lawyer. Not a threat this time, a request. Derek wanted to meet, apologize in person. Michael was skeptical but agreed. They met at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between their cities. Derek looked different, thinner, tired. He sat across from Michael and didn't waste time. "I was wrong," he said. "I was greedy and entitled and cruel. I'm sorry." Michael sipped his coffee. "Why now?" Derek exhaled. "My girlfriend left me, said I'd become someone she didn't recognize. I lost my job. Turns out when you sue family members, employers notice." He paused. "I've been in therapy, trying to figure out why I acted that way. Why I thought I deserved something you'd earned." "You didn't earn it either," Michael pointed out. "No," Derek agreed, "but Uncle Richard chose you. And after reading about the foundation, seeing what you've built, I understand why." He looked Michael in the eye. "You're doing something good, something I never could have done. I would have just spent it." Michael studied his cousin, saw genuine remorse. "Okay." Derek blinked. "Okay?" Michael nodded. "I forgive you. I won't forget, but I forgive you." Derek's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." He paused. "Is there any way I can help? Volunteer or something? I'm not asking for money, just, I don't know, a chance to be part of something that matters." Michael considered, then pulled out a business card. "Call Patricia. We always need volunteers. She'll find something." Derek took the card like it was precious. "I will. I promise." They finished their coffee, parted ways. Michael didn't know if Derek would follow through, but he'd given him a chance, because that's what the foundation was about. Second chances, new beginnings. March brought the memorial garden. Michael had been planning it for months, working with landscape architects, choosing plants, designing paths. The garden would honor Sarah, Catherine, Lily, and anyone else who'd been lost, a place of beauty and remembrance. Emma helped choose the location, a quiet corner of the property, surrounded by old trees. They broke ground on a warm spring day. Emma turned the first shovel of earth, Michael the second, Patricia the third. Over the following weeks, the garden took shape. Stone pathways wound between flowering bushes. Benches offered places to sit and remember. A fountain at the center featured a sculpture of intertwined hands, unity, support, love transcending loss. Plaques were installed, one for Catherine and Lily, one for Sarah, and a wall where visitors could add names of their own lost loved ones. The garden wasn't just for Michael's grief, it was for everyone's. The dedication ceremony was in April. Hundreds attended. People brought flowers, photographs, memories. Michael stood at the fountain and spoke. "This garden exists because loss is universal," he said. "We all lose people we love. We all carry grief, but we don't have to carry it alone." He gestured to the plaques. "These names represent love that doesn't end, memories that shape us, and hope that even in darkness, beauty can grow." Emma stepped forward. She'd written a poem, asked to read it. Michael nodded. She unfolded a piece of paper. Her voice was clear and strong. "When someone we love becomes a memory, The memory becomes a treasure. We carry them not as weight, but as wings, helping us rise, helping us remember that love is stronger than loss, and life is worth living, even when it hurts. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Michael pulled Emma close, whispered, "Mum would be so proud." In May, the foundation celebrated its first anniversary. 1 year since Michael had found the vault. 1 year since his life had changed. They'd awarded 63 scholarships, supported 200 families through grief counseling, trained 47 people in new job skills. The numbers were impressive, but more impressive were the stories. Jenny Morrow was finishing her first year of nursing school, top of her class. James had attended her awards ceremony, told Michael it was the proudest day of his life. The young mother from the electrical training program had graduated, found a job, was supporting her children, building a future. Countless others had been touched, helped, lifted, and the foundation was just beginning. Michael stood in his office reviewing the annual report. Patricia had compiled everything: budgets, outcomes, testimonials. It was remarkable. They'd done this, turned a hidden fortune into active good. His phone buzzed. A text from Rooker. "Need to see you. Something important." Michael's stomach dropped. They hadn't had security issues in months. He met Rooker in the library. "What's wrong?" Rooker held up a folder. "Remember the developer? The one who was pressuring you early on?" Michael nodded. "The guy who offered to help, then tried to force a sale." "He's been indicted," Rooker said. "Federal charges, fraud, money laundering. Turns out he's been running schemes across 3 states, buying properties under false pretenses. Your case helped build the investigation." Michael sat down. "We helped catch him?" Rooker smiled. "Your legal team documented everything. The threats, the intimidation. Provided it to authorities. He's looking at 15 years. Michael didn't feel victorious, just relieved. One more threat eliminated. But Rooker wasn't done. "There's more. The prosecutor wants you to testify. Show the jury how he operates, how he targets vulnerable people." Michael hesitated. "That means going public. More press." "It also means justice," Rooker said. "And it means protecting others from what he tried to do to you." Michael thought about it, then nodded. "If it helps, I'll do it." The trial was in June. Michael testified for 2 hours, described the pressure, the threats, the attempts to manipulate him. The jury listened carefully. The prosecutor was skilled. By the end of the day, the case was solid. The developer was convicted, sentenced to 12 years. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Michael. "How does it feel?" one asked. Michael looked directly at the camera. "It feels like justice, but more importantly, it feels like protection. This man can't hurt anyone else now." Another reporter called out, "Your foundation has been transformative. What's next?" Michael smiled. "We keep growing, keep helping, keep honoring the people we've lost by supporting the people who remain." That night, back at the mansion, Michael and Emma sat in the memorial garden. The sun was setting. Golden light filtered through the trees. They didn't talk, just sat together on a bench, surrounded by beauty, surrounded by memory. Emma broke the silence. "Daddy, do you think we've done enough?" Michael looked at his daughter, her question from months ago. The same concern. "We've done a lot," he said. "But there's always more to do, and that's okay. We'll keep going, for as long as we can, for as many as we can." She nodded, leaned against him. "I'm glad we found this place." "Me too, baby, me too." July brought the foundation's summer gala, bigger than the December event. More donors, more press, more celebration. The scholarship center was expanding. They'd need more space, more staff. The foundation was becoming an institution. Michael gave his speech with confidence now. No more nervousness, just purpose. He talked about the year's achievements, the plans for the future, the vision Richard had preserved and Michael had activated. After the formal program, people mingled. Michael worked the room, talked with donors, thanked volunteers, accepted congratulations, and for the first time he felt like he belonged in this role. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was living it. Patricia found him near midnight. The gala was winding down. She handed him an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it," she said. Inside was a letter from the National Philanthropic Society. They were awarding the foundation a grant, $5 million, to expand operations nationally. Michael stared at the number. $5 million? Patricia smiled. "They're impressed with what you've built. Want to help scale it?" Michael laughed, a sound of pure disbelief and joy. "We're going national?" "If you want to," Patricia said. "It's your choice." Michael looked around the mansion, at the people still celebrating, at Emma dancing with her friends, at the life they'd built. "Of course I want to. This is what Richard dreamed of. Impact that spreads, ripples that reach everywhere." "Then we accept," Patricia said. "And we get to work." The rest of summer was planning. Strategy sessions, hiring consultants, mapping expansion. By fall, the foundation had opened offices in 3 new cities, hired regional directors, multiplied their scholarship capacity. Michael traveled, visited each location, met staff, heard stories. Everywhere he went, people thanked him, told him how the foundation had changed their lives. He deflected the praise, pointed to Richard, to Patricia, to the team. But inside, he felt proud, not of himself, of what they'd all built together. In September, on the 2nd anniversary of Sarah's death, Michael visited her grave. He brought flowers, sat on the grass, talked to her the way he used to, told her about Emma, about the foundation, about the life they were living. "I think we're okay," he said. "I think we're more than okay. We're happy. We're helping people. We're honoring you." He paused. "I hope that makes you proud, wherever you are." The wind rustled through the cemetery. Somewhere a bird sang, and Michael felt peace, not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose alongside it. In October, the 2nd anniversary of inheriting the mansion, Michael hosted a quiet dinner. Just Patricia, Emma, Rooker, Dr. Chen, a few close friends. They ate in the dining room, the same room that had been covered in dust 2 years ago. Now it was alive, filled with laughter and conversation and warmth. After dinner, Michael stood, raised his glass. 2 years ago, he said, "I walked into this house broken, grieving, barely surviving. I had no idea what I'd find, what it would mean." He looked around the table. "You've all helped me transform this place, and in doing so, you've helped me transform myself. I'm not the same man who stood at that funeral in the rain. I'm stronger, more purposeful, more alive." He looked at Emma. "And this little girl has taught me that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form, becomes memory, becomes motivation, becomes legacy." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Richard," Patricia said. "To Sarah," Dr. Chen added. "To family," Emma said. "To second chances," Rooker finished. They drank. And in that moment, surrounded by people who mattered, Michael felt complete. Not because the pain was gone, but because it had been transformed into something beautiful. Later, Michael walked through the mansion alone. He'd done this often over the past 2 years, traced the path from entrance hall to library to vault, remembering the journey. Tonight, he stood in the second chamber, the shrine, looked at the photographs of Catherine and Lily, at Sarah's picture now beside theirs. "I did it," he whispered. "I took what you left and made it live, made it matter." He touched the glass case holding Lily's rabbit. "Thank you for trusting me, for believing I could do this." He turned off the lights, locked the chamber, climbed back to the main house. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new applications to review, new families to help, new lives to touch. But tonight, he rested, because he'd learned something crucial over the past 2 years. Legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about what you do with what you're given. Richard had given him wealth, but more importantly, he'd given him purpose, and Michael had taken that purpose and multiplied it, turned $270 million into hope, into futures, into proof that even the deepest loss can become the foundation for profound impact. He found Emma in her room. She was already asleep, book open on her chest. He gently removed it, pulled the blanket over her, kissed her forehead. "You're my whole world," he whispered. "Everything I do is for you, to give you the life Mom wanted, to show you that good people can do good things." He turned off her light, walked to his own room, the master bedroom he'd finally moved into. It had been Richard's, then empty for 32 years. Now it was his. And instead of ghosts, it held dreams. Michael stood at the window, looked out over the grounds, the gardens, the memorial fountain, the lights of the scholarship center still glowing. People were probably working late, helping someone fill out an application, answering questions, providing support. The work never stopped, and that was beautiful. His phone buzzed. An email. Another scholarship application. He'd read it tomorrow. Right now, he needed sleep. But before he climbed into bed, he opened his laptop, pulled up the document he'd been working on, his own journal, his record of this journey. He'd started it 6 months ago. Patricia's suggestion. "Document everything," she'd said. "Someday Emma will want to know the full story." Michael typed. October 15th. 2 years since I found the vault. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. That I went from barely surviving to running a national foundation. That I live in a mansion that once terrified me. That I'm responsible for wealth I never imagined. But the truth is, I'm not responsible for the wealth. I'm responsible for what it becomes. And every day it becomes hope. It becomes futures. It becomes proof that loss doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something meaningful. Richard understood that. He just couldn't do it himself. So he passed it to me, and I'm passing it forward. To Jenny, who's becoming a nurse. To James's daughter, who got a future. To the mother learning electrical work. To the hundreds we've helped. To the thousands we'll help. This is what inheritance really means. Not money, not property, but responsibility, purpose, legacy. And I'm grateful. Grateful to Richard for the gift. Grateful to Sarah for teaching me strength. Grateful to Emma for reminding me every day what matters. Grateful to Patricia for walking this journey with me. Grateful to everyone who's helped transform a forgotten mansion into a beacon of hope. Tomorrow we keep going. But tonight I rest. Because I've learned something important. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't help others if you don't help yourself. So I take care of me. I take care of Emma. And from that foundation of health and love, we take care of everyone else. Anyone can change the world if they're willing to transform pain into purpose. If they're brave enough to stand when others sit. If they're generous enough to share when others hoard. This isn't the end of our story. It's just the beginning. Because legacy isn't built in moments. It's built in choices, daily decisions to show up, to help, to honor those we've lost by lifting those who remain. And that's what we'll keep doing, for as long as we're able, for as many as we can reach. Because the greatest wealth isn't money, it's meaning, and we've found ours. Michael saved the document, closed the laptop, climbed into bed, and for the first time in 2 years, he slept without nightmares, without fear, without doubt, just peace, deep and true and earned. Because he'd done it. Turned a hidden fortune into active good. Transformed a tomb of grief into a temple of hope. Honored the dead by serving the living. And in doing so, he'd discovered something profound. That the man who'd stood in the rain at a stranger's funeral, broken and barely holding on, had become the man he was always meant to be. A father, a guardian, a builder of legacies. The widowed construction worker who'd inherited a mansion worth $270 million had become something worth far more. A man of purpose, a man of impact, a man who proved that sometimes the greatest inheritances aren't what you receive, they're what you do with what you're given. And Michael Hart had done something extraordinary. He'd turned loss into legacy, grief into grace, and hidden fortune into hope that would echo through generations. Because that's what real wealth looks like. Not vaults full of gold, but lives transformed, futures secured, purposes discovered, and love that never ends. Just changes form, becomes memory, becomes mission, becomes the reason we rise each morning and choose to build something beautiful from something broken. Anyone can inherit money, but it takes courage to inherit responsibility, wisdom to turn wealth into impact, and love to remember that the greatest legacy isn't what we leave behind, it's what we lift up while we're here. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories waiting for you. Click to keep discovering miracles hidden in unexpected places, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe the greatest fortunes are found not in vaults, but in the courage to use what we're given to change lives forever.